This last Saturday, on April 22nd, thousands of people hit the streets worldwide to march in protest for the Science March. Now, this is basically a climate change march in which people are demanding that science take precedence over politicians and that science dictate policy. Well, we are going to be talking to Holly Swanson, the director of We Choose Freedom. She's also the author of Training for Treason, which is the harmful agenda behind education for sustainability, and the book Set Up and Sold Out: What Green Really Means. So let's go ahead and talk to Holly about environmental education in our schools. Hi, Holly. Thank you so much for speaking with us. So can you tell us a little bit about how this environmental education has something a lot more sinister behind it?
Absolutely. As we all care about the environment and we all want the best for our children, clean air and clean water, what has happened over the years since the initial launch of Earth Day in 1970, what has occurred is there has been a lot of good accomplished. However, there has been a change in the format, especially when it comes to environmental education. And after 20 years of researching this movement, the alleged nonpartisan status of the environmental movement of Earth Day is absolutely incorrect. The entire environmental movement, and specifically Earth Day, climate change education, environmental literacy, are promoting, imposing an agenda on our children, on America's children, our future voters, that mirrors communism and Green Party goals. And because this has been presented as an environmental education program, the Earth Day Network and the environmental movement has gained unprecedented access into our schools. And that creates a problem because the goals of the Earth Day Network, just to use it to paraphrase what is in their promotional material for Earth Day 2017, the theme of Earth Day 2017 is environmental and climate literacy.
It has a very good moral behind it. I mean, everyone doesn't want to pollute the environment. We want our kids to be responsible. But, you know, there's something more sinister behind it. And when we see all these people like we just saw this last Saturday on April 22nd for Earth Day, marching worldwide, we had people marching on Washington, D.C., and they were, you know, there was a lot of anti-Trump sentiment there. Can you tell us about how this is going to affect politics?
One of the goals of the Earth Day Network is that environmental and climate literacy is recognized as the engine for creating green voters. It's recognized as the engine by the environmental movement for creating green voters. That means using our public education system to indoctrinate our children to vote green, to vote for the policies and the ideology, the political ideology of the green movement, which is really in opposition to what Trump and his administration stand for. And the idea is to make our classrooms literally sites of resistance to what the president is doing as far as environmental regulations. And when you have little children who do not know the difference, they're not scientists, they do not know the difference between what makes a society work or not work, they don't understand the value of freedom. So by targeting our children and setting a goal to create green voters, the environmental movement is looking to establish a communist model of education where the children in communist countries, education is used as a weapon to control the children from the time they're little all the way through school so they're manageable as adults. And every subject is used to indoctrinate the child to support communism. And when you understand the political agenda of the environmental movement and Earth Day mirrors communism and Green Party goals, then the plan to create green voters becomes more clear.
Now, do they use climate change as a tool to kind of scare these kids into believing that, you know, the world's going to end if they don't do something?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The point is, as a matter of survival, these children are learning that in order for them to survive, they need to become political activists, social justice activists, and they need to work to end our free market system, work to end the use of fossil fuels. Change our political system is part of that, which takes us right to the goal of social justice, which is a tremendous part of the environmental literacy and climate literacy politicized curriculum. And the goal of social justice is to achieve equality in the distribution of goods and wealth among all groups in society. That goal right there of social justice matches the Central Intelligence Agency definition of a communist form of government. So if the environmental movement is teaching social justice as a climate goal, as an environmental goal, then they are teaching our children to be against our form of government and for a communist form of government. There's no two ways about it.
That's exactly right, because, you know, at the Earth Day March, a.k.a. the Climate Change March in Washington, D.C., they even had Bill Nye the Science Guy there speaking to everyone, and he even said science should dictate policy, not politicians. So that speaks exactly to what you're saying.
That's right. And climate change, and this is just a direct quote, climate change is no longer framed in physical or environmental terms, but as a social, ethical, and political issue. And that's exactly what you're talking about. By framing climate and by promoting consensus science rather than factual science, this is where the inroad into the classroom, there's still a strong and heavy debate going on the severity of what the climate issue is, how it will impact, but it is being taught as fact in our schools. And the idea is to use climate literacy literally to gain access further into the schools, to target and train America's children, to politically indoctrinate our children to support an agenda that mirrors communism and Green Party goals and turn them against our form of government. It is a very serious issue of national security. We need to stop it. The environmental movement, the goal of Earth Day is to get this done, to flip our education system, take over our education system, and make the new mission of public education teaching this agenda. In other words, impose a communist model of education in 3 short years. The 50th anniversary of Earth Day is 2020, and the goal is to get this job done by 2020.
Wow.
So we have a lot of work to do.
So what is an example of a communist ideology or belief system that's being masked through environmental education?
One of the best examples, again, is teaching social justice. That is that all wealth must be distributed equally. And you cannot teach social justice that all wealth must be distributed equally within our society. You cannot teach that unless you teach that you need a form of government that would first have to, A, confiscate the wealth before it could be distributed equally, wouldn't they? So you have to teach our children to be against free enterprise. You have to teach our children to be against our form of government and to be for a dictatorial form of government. And when you're talking about private property as part of what would be confiscated, Karl Marx said, communism can be summed up in a single sentence: the abolition of private property. So if all wealth has to be distributed equally, that means an end to private property ownership as well. And this is being built in through fear, literally scare tactics for not only the climate, but also endangered species.
Wow.
And it's all in
we are running out
ocean.
of time, but thank you so
Okay.
much, and we will have to have you come back on again. So thank you so much, Holly.
You are welcome. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.